Diana Matthews walked into the grandiose lobby of the First National Bank with confidence. She was impeccably dressed, her business proposal tightly clasped in her hand. Years of saving, planning, and countless sacrifices had brought her to this moment. Her dream of opening a wellness center was on the verge of becoming a reality. All she needed was a loan to seal the deal. She stepped up to the front desk, greeted the receptionist with a warm smile, and was soon led to the office of Mr. Alan Crane, the loan officer in charge. Mr. Crane barely glanced at her when she entered. His eyes remained fixed on his computer screen, fingers tapping away at the keys. "Good morning, Mr. Crane. I'm Diana Matthews, here for my loan appointment," she said, extending her hand. He glanced up, gave her a tight-lipped smile, and shook her hand for barely a second. "Please, take a seat." Diana handed him her meticulously prepared proposal, a thick binder full of market research, financial forecasts, and testimonials from industry experts. Mr. Crane flipped through the pages with a practiced hand, but without much interest. He cleared his throat. "Ms. Matthews, your proposal is detailed," he began. "But our bank has certain standards we must uphold, especially in these challenging economic times." Diana furrowed her brows. "I've met all the requirements. I have a solid business plan, excellent credit, and I'm ready to make this a success." Mr. Crane folded his hands on the desk and looked her square in the eye. "It's not about the numbers. It's about risk. You see, we have to consider the clientele you might attract, the neighborhood you're planning to open in, and whether or not the demographic fits our target for lending." Diana's stomach churned. She knew exactly what he meant by the clientele. She was opening her wellness center in a predominantly black neighborhood, one that had been underserved and ignored by businesses like his for years. "You're denying my loan because I'm black," Diana said bluntly. Mr. Crane straightened his tie, visibly uncomfortable. "That's not what I said." "You didn't have to," she replied coldly, standing up. "I'll be filing a formal complaint. This isn't over." The following week, Diana's complaint reached the higher-ups at the bank. Word spread quickly. The local news picked up the story after an anonymous tip, and soon protesters gathered outside the bank's downtown branch, demanding answers. Signs reading "Equal Loans for All" and "No to Discrimination" were being waved by an increasingly agitated crowd. Inside the bank's boardroom, the tension was palpable. The CEO, Gerald Harris, sat at the head of the table, listening as Mr. Crane and the legal team tried to explain the situation. But no matter how they spun it, the optics were terrible. "We can't have this kind of publicity," Harris said sharply. "Crane, you'll issue an apology, and we'll approve her loan." "But sir," Mr. Crane protested, "her proposal—" "Enough," Harris interrupted. "I don't care what her proposal looks like anymore. The entire community is watching us. We don't have the luxury of ignoring this. Do you understand what this could do to our reputation?" Mr. Crane went quiet. He understood. In a matter of days, the bank had gone from one of the most respected institutions in the city to being seen as a symbol of discrimination. Diana was sitting in her living room when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello. Ms. Matthews, this is Gerald Harris, CEO of First National Bank. I'd like to personally apologize for the way your loan application was handled. We've reviewed your proposal again and are happy to approve it." Diana's jaw clenched. She knew this wasn't about them seeing her worth. It was about them saving face. "I'm not interested in your approval anymore, Mr. Harris," she replied firmly. "I'm interested in accountability. If you want to apologize, do it publicly. Admit that you've been engaging in discriminatory practices and commit to doing better, not just for me, but for everyone." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Finally, Harris spoke. "I understand. We'll arrange a press conference. You have my word." 2 days later, the bank's CEO stood before the cameras with Diana standing beside him. Reporters crowded the room, microphones thrust forward to catch every word. "At First National Bank, we pride ourselves on treating all customers fairly," Harris began. "But recently we fell short of that commitment. Ms. Matthews was denied a loan based on factors that should never influence our decisions. This was wrong, and we are taking immediate action to rectify it." Diana watched as the cameras flashed, her heart beating fast. She had won, not just for herself, but for the many others who had likely been quietly turned away without anyone knowing. After the press conference, a young black woman approached Diana. "I've been trying to get a loan for my own business for months," she said. "But they always found a reason to deny me. After seeing you speak up, I feel like I might have a chance now." Diana smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "You absolutely do. Keep fighting." As the crowd dispersed, Mr. Crane watched from the bank's glass doors. His face was ashen, knowing his actions had been exposed. The weight of public scrutiny bore down on him, and it was clear he would no longer have the power to decide who was worthy of a loan. Diana walked past him without a word. This was just the beginning of a much larger change. As Diana left the bank, she felt a mix of relief and determination. She had fought for herself and her community, but deep down, she knew that one victory wouldn't change an entire system. She returned to her apartment where the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Journalists, activists, and even other business owners wanted to talk to her. She could sense a movement forming around her. A few days later, Diana received a call from a woman named Evelyn Torres, a well-known civil rights attorney. Evelyn had seen the press conference and was inspired by Diana's courage. She had an idea: to launch a class action lawsuit against First National Bank for racial discrimination in lending practices. "I've spoken to several people who were denied loans at that bank under suspicious circumstances," Evelyn explained over the phone. "If we can gather enough evidence, we can push for systemic change." Diana hesitated for a moment. She had already won her personal battle, but this was something bigger. It was a chance to expose the injustice not just at one bank, but across the industry. "I'm in," Diana said. In the weeks that followed, the lawsuit gained traction. More and more people came forward: black entrepreneurs, Hispanic business owners, and even lower-income white applicants who had been unfairly denied loans. The media ran stories about the discriminatory practices in banks across the country, and public pressure mounted. Inside First National Bank, things were spiraling out of control. Mr. Crane was quietly let go from his position, but the damage had already been done. CEO Gerald Harris tried to maintain the bank's reputation, but the lawsuit had opened Pandora's box. Investors pulled their funds, customers closed their accounts, and the once great institution was now a symbol of greed and racism. At the trial, Diana stood before the court, her voice steady as she testified. She wasn't just fighting for her wellness center anymore. She was fighting for everyone who had ever been dismissed because of the color of their skin. When the verdict came, the courtroom was packed. The judge ruled in favor of Diana and the other plaintiffs, ordering First National Bank to pay millions in damages and implement sweeping reforms in their lending practices. The decision sent shockwaves through the banking industry. As Diana left the courthouse surrounded by reporters, she reflected on how far she'd come. Her victory wasn't just about securing a loan. It was about standing up against a system designed to keep people like her down. And she had proven that no matter how powerful that system seemed, it could be broken. Later that evening, as Diana sat in her now open wellness center, she gazed out at the smiling faces of her clients, people of all backgrounds who had found peace and healing in her space. Her phone buzzed with a message from Evelyn. "This is just the beginning." Diana smiled and replied, "Yes, it is." Diana's wellness center became a symbol of hope and resilience. The lawsuit not only brought justice but inspired a wave of reform across banks nationwide. With her success, Diana helped others like her achieve their dreams, proving that one person could ignite real change. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more inspiring stories like this.